Today on Dr. Phill, the doctor who murdered his wife.
He almost got away with it.
New allegations from his daughter.
We uncovered a web of lies.
About his mistress.
Was she a Wiccan priestess?
I'm told that she was casting spells.
Gypsy says that's laughable.
I believe it did happen.
Their shameless act that even shocked Dr. Phill.
And this was just a week after my mother's death.
That is cold. Well, today we're talking about a story that continues to make headlines. A prominent doctor plots to murder his wife and make her death look like an accident. He almost got away with it. But Martin McNeil's children would not rest until their father was behind bars. Now, one of his daughters is here today to speak out for the first time about her dad's mistress, who posed as the nanny. It was a dramatic trial that everyone was talking about that included testimony from not one, but two of Martin McNeil's mistresses. Take a look.
Breaking news tonight, a 911 call from a doctor lawyer when a 6-year-old little girl comes home to find mommy face up in red water in the family bathtub.
She is unconscious and underwater.
A Pleasant Grove judge ordered Martin McNeil to stand trial for murder and obstruction of justice.
Prosecutors say he gave his wife a lethal combination of drugs. Michelle was found dead in her bathtub while in Martin's care.
It was horrifying. I mean, he killed my mother.
Alexis is the daughter that was there at her mother's side in the hospital after that fatal facelift. Her father was telling Michelle McNeil to just swallow it.
One major factor for the prosecution on this case, they say that McNeil's long-term affair with Gypsy Willis was the former doctor's motive for allegedly killing his wife.
Willis testified she met Martin McNeil online in November 2005, and by January, the relationship had turned sexual. The affair continued until the day Michelle McNeil died.
Are you familiar with what was happening on April 14th?
I believe that was the day of his wife's funeral.
And did you attend that funeral?
I did.
Oh, Gypsy. Woo. She testified that the very day after Michelle's death, are you sitting down? She sent sexy pictures of her back and her rear end to Dr. McNeil, the supposedly grieving husband who was her secret lover.
What are these pictures showing?
They are of me in a mirror, exposing my back.
Is it exposing below your back as well?
There's one picture where it's a little bit suggestive.
It's showing your buttocks.
It was a circumstantial case, but in the end, prosecutors convinced the jury that McNeil did it.
The jury, having reviewed the evidence and testimony in the case, find the defendant as to count 1, murder, guilty.
I can't believe this has finally happened. We're so grateful.
Now, at first, police think it's a tragic accident, but family members were certain that Dr. McNeil was responsible. A series of bizarre clues emerged. Martin allegedly pressured his wife to get a facelift. He demanded to be in control of dispensing her medications. And Martin had a seductive mistress, a young brunette named Gypsy Willis. Now, Gypsy recently appeared on our show, and she admitted that she and Martin participated in a lot of scandalous activity, much of it while the dirt on his wife's grave was still fresh. Tell me, what is it you want people to know about you?
The portrayal of the media has been very, very harsh.
You were his mistress.
I was.
The truth is, you were potentially an incentive for him to kill his wife, which a jury just found him guilty of.
Yeah.
As you sit here today, do you believe he is guilty or do you believe he's innocent?
You know, the jury came back and they said that he's guilty. I believe he did not kill Michelle.
But they used you as motive.
They used me as motive, yes.
According to a search warrant in 2004, you told your then roommates that you wanted to get rid of Michelle.
These particular roommates that came forward had moved out of my home more than a year before I ever met Martin. I believe that they wanted attention, and
they said they saw a picture of his wife in your room.
That is totally impossible.
Did he invite you to her funeral?
No, he didn't invite me. I wanted to go and pay my respects.
You sent him seductive pictures the day after he buried his wife. True?
They were pretty tame, but yes, there were photos that were sent. I wanted to distract him from his grief, and I wanted him to still think of me.
You move in as a nanny.
That was the way I was portrayed to the family and neighborhood.
And you and he, of course, knew that you were a lot more than a nanny.
Yes.
Did he chew you up and spit you out?
He betrayed all of us, all of our trust. He's destroyed my life.
Well, Martin and Michelle's second oldest daughter, Alexis, is here today. Now, after Gypsy's interview on our show, we wanted to give her a chance to be a voice for her mother. And you won't believe what she has to say about my conversation with Gypsy. Alexis and her family fought tirelessly for justice for their beloved mom. They refused to rest until her dad was locked away behind bars.
My mom and dad were married for 29 years. My father was a physician. He was someone who I looked up to. Things began changing around the time my father turned 50. My mother began to become concerned that he was having an affair. My father, out of the blue, told my mother that he was going to get her a facelift. My father demanded that she go through with it right away. And my mother was frightened. She said, "Alexis, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your father." After getting back from the facelift, I called and my father answered. And he said, "Your mother's in the tub. She's not breathing." It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was shaky inside. I just knew that my father had killed my mother. Less than a week after my mother's funeral, he said, "Alexis, I found the perfect nanny. Her name is Jillian." And I said, "Dad, Gypsy Jillian Willis? And I know Mom was worried you were having an affair with her. Gypsy knows a lot more than she's letting on. I believe that she was involved with killing my mother. The autopsy report stated that my mother died from natural causes." My sister Rachel and I began this year-and-a-half crusade just to try to get someone to look into my mother's death.
On the jury, and the defendant, guilty.
I feel very relieved that my father is now going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. It's been the worst nightmare. My mother was my best friend. My whole world was taken away from me the day my mom died.
Well, Dr. McNeil's daughter, Alexis, joins us today, along with her aunt, Linda, Michelle McNeil's sister. So I welcome both of you here. Let me say I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that both of you are here because Gypsy came in and answered my questions, and I sure wanted to hear what you guys had to say about this as well. Once the death and the investigation, all that, did you learn a lot more about your father than you knew before?
Yes, you know, the father that I knew was basically a lie. We uncovered a web of lies that surrounded my father and uncovered who my father actually was. She turned to me and said, "Alexis, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your father."
Why would your mom think that your dad wanted her dead? How would you describe the relationship with your mother, between the two of them?
I thought my father loved my mother. You know, they were married for 29 years, and my mom loved him and loved her family.
Did you ever hear them argue?
I did, and my father was a controlling person.
When you heard them fight or argue, what was it about?
The last time I heard them argue, shortly before my mother's death, she had wanted his phone records because she had found him calling this woman, who turned out to be Gypsy, and she said that she was not going to let that rest, that she wanted his next set of phone records because he was denying this affair.
Did you ever talk to her about that when you overheard that?
Yeah, I did. I talked to my mom several times. She confided in me about her concerns of my father and
So Gypsy Willis was on your radar long before she showed up as a nanny?
Well, shortly before, because as soon as I found out about Gypsy, my mother was dead a few days later.
Yeah. Why did your mother decide to have a facelift?
My dad, out of the blue, said, "I want to give you a facelift." This was the day after she confronted him about being concerned about this Gypsy Willis. And then out of the blue, he said, well, let's get you a facelift. And
she didn't want to do it? She didn't ask to do that?
no, she didn't ask. He said he was going to give her a present of a facelift. And she thought, well, you know, I guess I'll go to the consultation. And then she liked the doctor once she met him. But she didn't want to get the facelift, and especially right away. But he said, you know, you have to do it. I've already paid for it.
Was there a point at which she told you she was concerned about her safety?
Yeah.
What did she say?
Well, there were several instances, but the last one was while she was taking a bath, I was helping her wash her hair, and she turned to me and said, Alexis, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your father.
If something happens to me, make sure what?
Make sure it wasn't your father.
Make sure it wasn't your father. Did that shock you?
It did. I didn't take it seriously at the time. I said, Mom, what are you talking about? He would never hurt you. And a day later, she was dead.
Now, there has been testimony that he asked her surgeon to prescribe certain drugs for her, and the list to me looked like it went beyond what you would normally have to control pain from that kind of surgery.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
He had a list that he brought to the plastic surgeon and said that he wanted my mother prescribed extra medications, extra narcotics, some things that he said that my mom might need.
Right. And then he was dispensing the medicines to her.
Initially, when she came home from the hospital, he was, until I went in there the next morning and my mom was completely sedated. I confronted my father. I said, what did you give her? And he said, oh, I must have given her too much and over-medicated her. And from that point on, I said, I'm taking over the medications. You're not to give her any medicine.
So you found her completely unresponsive, right?
Mm-hmm. When she woke up, she said, Alexis, you know, your dad just kept giving me pills. He kept saying swallow. And at that time, her eyes were bandaged. And she had me give her each pill so she could feel in her fingers and know what medicine it was in case he tried to give her more medication.
So she knew something was going on here.
She was very concerned.
So she was in fear at that point.
She was fearful.
Why would your mom think that your dad wanted her dead?
I don't know. I mean, I know that she was concerned about the affair. Maybe she just had some intuition.
When you left to go back to medical school, that was how long after you found her unresponsive?
That was about 6 days, and she was doing great by the time I left. I mean, she was back to her normal activities, and we'd just gone out to dinner. I wouldn't have left if she hadn't been doing so well.
Right. So she was fine at that point.
Yeah.
So you thought, okay, she's got her faculties back,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
up, she's moving around. It never occurred to you that he would still do something.
No, I mean, if I would have been concerned, I would not have left.
How long before you got the phone call?
I flew out the evening of the 10th, and it was the morning of the 11th that my mother was murdered.
So you weren't out of the house 12 hours before he made his move, according to court testimony.
Yeah.
And tell me about that phone call.
Well, I actually had received a voicemail from my father while I was in class, and I listened to it, and it said, your mother's not listening to me, she's getting out of bed, you need to call her and tell her to get back to bed. And I just thought, this is really strange because she'd been doing so well. I mean, she wasn't staying in bed. So I called home and no one answered. And during my next break, I called home again and my father answered the phone and said, your mother's in the bathtub and she's not breathing and I've called an ambulance.
What was your first thought?
My first thought was he killed her.
You just knew it right then?
I knew. I dropped all my bags and jumped in the car and started driving to the airport, and I was just screaming that he killed her. He killed her.
Okay, so you get home. You drive to the airport, you get a flight, you get home. Tell me about your first interaction with your father when you saw him.
I walked right back into the bedroom, and I went right to where the medicine was kept, and all the medication was gone. And so I turned to my father, and the first thing I said to him is, where is the medicine? And he said, I don't know, I think the police must have taken it. Later, I found that he had had my brother and his girlfriend flush the medication down the toilet and throw it out, you know.
Linda, how did you learn about it?
My sister, Terry, called me and said, have you gotten a call? Is there something wrong with Michelle?
What was your first reaction once you knew it was true?
I said, oh, he finally killed her.
All right, let's take a break. Next, Alexis says right before her mom's death, her mom told her that she suspected Martin was cheating on her with a woman named Gypsy Willis. Well, you won't believe what her father and Gypsy did just weeks after her mother's funeral. We'll talk about that next.
My father called me and said, I found the perfect nanny. And I said, Gypsy Jillian Willis, Mom was concerned you were having an affair with her and you're not to move her into the home. He basically said, you're no longer welcome in the family. Shortly after my mother's funeral, my father told my sister Rachel, we need to find a nanny. Let's go to the temple and we can pray about it. As they were waiting outside of the temple, this woman came up to my sister and my father and said, I was at the funeral, I'm so sorry for your loss. And my dad looked at her and said, what's your name again? And she'd said, Jillian. He later found out that was Gypsy. They'd set up this encounter with Rachel as an introduction to then bring her in as the nanny.
Well, Gypsy Willis says that she had no idea Martin McNeil was planning to kill his wife, Michelle. And it's even harder for her to consider the possibility that she could have been the motive behind the murder. But the doctor's daughter thinks Gypsy is lying. She believes Gypsy was involved in plotting to eliminate her mother from the equation. That's an allegation Gypsy absolutely denies, and she has not been charged in relation to Michelle's death. She says, I talked to her, she says, didn't see any warning signs, had no clue, was shocked, and to this day believes that your mother just had a heart attack. Why do you believe otherwise?
She's an actress. I mean, I've just gotten to know who Gypsy Willis is, and she is a lot like my father.
Well, Alexis found out after the fact that Gypsy was brazen enough to attend her mother's funeral. Not only that, Gypsy admits she was sending provocative text messages to Martin throughout the entire day. She even texted him during Michelle's funeral service. Take a look. Did he invite you to her funeral?
No, he didn't invite me. I wanted to go and pay my respects.
You understand how that sounds to people because you disrespected her in life, but you wanted to pay your respects to her in death.
I felt sorry that I had been involved inappropriately before it was a possibility. I was so sorry for his family.
Did you text him twice during the funeral?
I did.
You sent him seductive pictures the day after he buried his wife.
Yes, there were photos that were sent.
But one was you're bareback to a mirror, and I mean, they weren't like
yeah, I think my dimples
at the Grand Canyon or something.
Right.
These were private pictures.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
I wanted to distract him from his grief, and I wanted him to still think of me, even. There's no way to go through this and sound good. I am sorry.
She's coming on saying that she was sorry and she respected my mother, and she was involved. She had no respect for my mother or my family.
How did your father behave at your mother's funeral? Was it what one would expect, or was it something unusual?
It was unusual. I mean, he began her funeral talk with a joke, and then he didn't mention my mother at all during the talk, and only talked about his childhood and how he had so many hardships in his life. But you know, at the funeral luncheon, he was joking and saying he needs to get used to being a bachelor.
So the eulogy was all about him.
It was.
Not about her. That sounds very narcissistic.
He's a very narcissistic man.
I'd like for you to listen to what Gypsy had to say about pretending to be a nanny moving in to the home. You move in 9 days after he buries this woman into her house, right?
Yes. Why?
Why?
Martin and his family were in deep chaos, and you know, my background was nursing. I thought I could help.
How did his children react?
Well, his oldest daughter had been there trying to help, and there had been some personality conflict, and he needed different help, and so it doesn't sound right. I'm sorry.
You move in as a nanny,
Yes.
right? That was
the way I was portrayed to the family and neighborhood.
okay. And you and he, of course, knew that you were a lot more than a nanny.
Yes.
That you had a separate relationship with him. Did the kids suspect that there was more going on when you first moved in?
No, not when I first moved in. I have heard now that they have, or they did, perhaps, but not at the time.
That's not true. Before she moved in as the nanny, my father called me and said, I found the perfect nanny. And this was about a week after my mother's death. And I said, what's her name? And he said, it's Jillian. And I said, Gypsy Jillian Willis. Mom was concerned you were having an affair with her, and you're not to move her into the home. And he was irate, screaming at me, and he basically said, you're no longer welcome in the family. He had this plan. He had my mother's murder planned out and had her moving in right away. And then as soon as she moved in, he got rid of all the children. Gypsy is master manipulator. She's a con artist. She's a lot like my father. Gypsy's former roommates came forward and said that Gypsy wanted to kill my mother, and she had talked about cutting my mother's brakes on her car and having her die in a car crash. And they had said to her, Gypsy, you know, she has young children. And Gypsy said, they'll probably be okay, they'll be in car seats.
You say that your father and Gypsy created this elaborate ruse for him to find her. Tell me about that.
Well, he had talked with my sister Rachel and said that we need to go to the temple to pray about getting a nanny. And they went to the temple, and Gypsy shows up outside of the temple and comes up to my father and says, I'm so sorry for your loss. I was at the funeral. And my father said, oh, well, I forget, who are you? What's your name? This was Gypsy's way of being introduced to the family and I guess being a divine answer to prayers.
So this whole thing was set up.
Yes, and she discussed that in court, how this was all planned.
So we're going to go pray about this, and then as an answer to prayer, here she is.
He had this plan. He had my mother's murder planned out and had her moving in right away. And then as soon as she moved in, he got rid of all the children.
And what do you mean he got rid of all the children? Now, there were 8 children, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Four had been grown, were raised.
There were the 4 of you. And
then my 4 adopted sisters.
4 adopted sisters from?
Ukraine.
So who was she nannying?
I guess my thoughts exactly.
I mean, it didn't even make common sense, right?
No. Then she said that she was nursing my father back to health because he was claiming that he had cancer and multiple sclerosis and was dying, which was a lie as well.
So he claimed to have cancer but didn't.
Yeah.
MS and didn't. Now, this cancer that he had was located where? Is it
his toe.
In his foot,
Yeah.
his toe?
And that's, that was his reasoning for not being able to help my mother out of the bathtub because of his hurt toe. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Okay, he has a sore toe.
Basically, yeah.
So he can't pull her out of. And what did your mother weigh?
About 170 pounds. He was a 220-pound, 6 foot 3 man. I mean, he was very capable.
He allows this 6-year-old to come in and find her in the tub.
No, it's horrifying. Ada, it's just been horrifying for her.
Why not just get divorced? If he wants to be with Gypsy, we call that divorce. You get a divorce and you go do what you want to do.
I know, but he'd spent, I believe 30 years of his marriage creating this facade of who he was, a respected physician and attorney in the community, a family man. And I believe, if he would have gone through with a divorce, not only would he have lost money, but he would have, that facade would have crumbled. And he wouldn't have been portrayed as who he wanted people to think he was.
His ego wouldn't stand that.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Next, Alexis reacts to Gypsy's shocking confessions. We'll be right back.
I'm disgusted by her and by her actions.
Was she a Wiccan priestess?
She had a shrine of my mother and was casting spells. My father's brother was found dead in a bathtub, very similar to how my mother died. He's a dangerous person. He can't hurt anyone else anymore.
Your father was in the military.
He was.
And was he discharged for mental illness?
Yes. We uncovered documents, his discharge documents, and mental illness played a part into his discharge. I know he used that defense later when he had some issues with fraud and forgery. So one of his mistresses who testified during the trial came forth to the investigators and told them that my dad had confessed to her about killing his brother, drowning him in a bathtub, as well as killing some patients that he had worked with. He worked at a facility that housed severely mentally disabled people, and he said that he had killed several of them as well.
Right.
He also mentioned to her that he had tried to kill his mother as a child, and she did come forward to the authorities.
Wow. And there was a blog created once all of this started coming to light, and people that had encountered him as patients started coming forward at that time, right? And they made what allegations?
They made allegations of rape, just abuse allegations.
And these are all allegations. I want to be very clear. No one has sustained a charge in that regard. These are allegations. They haven't been proven, but they all became part of the fabric of what you were learning about what was being said about your father, at least. Are you surprised that you missed so much this bad about your father? You say he was an actor.
Yeah. He was a master manipulator. He was a person who was able to lead pretty much two lives. And yeah, it's horrifying. This was a man that I loved and respected.
What do you say to yourself?
Looking back now, there were red flags. I would have done everything to save my mom.
Are you angry at Gypsy?
No, I like to not try to think about her very much. Want to focus on more positive things and focus on my mother. But I'm disgusted by her and by her actions.
Was she what's known as a Wiccan priestess?
That's what I've been told.
What the hell is that?
I have no idea. But she had a shrine of my mother in her room, and told that she was casting spells, or I don't, just unbelievable things to try to harm my mother.
Well, Gypsy's ex-roommates testified in court that Gypsy kept photos of Michelle in their apartment, spoke about cutting her brakes, had a shrine there. I asked Gypsy about that. Listen to what she said. According to a search warrant, an affidavit in 2004, it said that you told your then roommates that you wanted to get rid of Michelle.
These particular roommates that came forward had moved out of my home more than a year before I ever met Martin. I believe that they wanted attention.
They said they saw a picture of his wife in your room.
That is totally impossible.
Did you ever make reference to cutting her brake lines?
I never said that to anyone about
Did you ever
anything.
make reference to giving her undetectable medications?
No.
Wiccan priestess. I mean, is this this is something where the roommates say she was casting spells and had this shrine and was really focused on her in some way. She says, didn't happen, couldn't have happened. What do you believe?
I believe it did happen. I mean, her roommates really had no reason to come forward. They were actually fearful of Gypsy and were scared to testify.
We reached out to Gypsy and asked her to respond to Alexis's allegations that she is a Wiccan priestess, cast spells, and had a shrine to Alexis's mom in her home. Gypsy says that's laughable and completely untrue. This was her response. LOL, sorry to disappoint her. I have friends who are a variety of things, but I am personally of no particular religion. I see many parallels in so many beliefs. There is no point in fighting, excluding over it. I just try to incorporate basic goodness into my life wherever I find it. While I respect all beliefs equally, I don't have any religious affiliation at all. He moves into your mother's house 9 days after she is murdered, then ship off the 16-year-old and just appropriate her identity. Did they just sit around and hatch crimes? Now, after Martin moved Gypsy in as the nanny, one of the things he did was send your 16-year-old sister, Giselle, to visit relatives in the Ukraine, right?
That's correct.
So Gypsy could steal her identity.
Well, and that's exactly what happened.
Take a look at this, and then I'll get your reactions. You and Martin were arrested for identity theft.
That's correct.
Tell me what happened.
When Martin and I got together, I had significant debt. He wanted to add me just to give me access to the accounts under his daughter's Social Security number.
So he has a daughter named?
Giselle.
Now, Giselle is out of the country.
This is true.
He says, okay, she's away, so he says, we'll just use her name and her Social Security number.
Yes. He said that, one, people wouldn't notice. Two, we were just doing it to grant me access to the account, and there was no injury to Giselle.
Whose decision was it to send his 16-year-old daughter Giselle out of the country and back to the Ukraine?
I think it was a family decision, actually. They had found a living sister in Ukraine, and so they had been corresponding back and forth, and Giselle wanted to go live with her sister.
And the reports say that once she got there, she couldn't get back home.
When she got there, Martin had doubled the family's income, and he spoke to her frequently, at least once a week.
Did she have any idea that you had stolen her identity?
No.
Because it just seems beyond coincidental that she gets shipped off, you take her identity, and that it seems like he got rid of two. Killed his wife and shipped his daughter. You took her identity and moved into his wife's house.
Well, not in that order. It was. We thought about this after the fact,
yeah,
after all these things.
You understand there is a pattern.
Yes, I understand, and it looks awful, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, it looks awful. He moves into your mother's house 9 days after she passes or is murdered. Then ship off the 16-year-old and just appropriate her identity to perpetrate, to get access to these accounts so the government won't know she has access to money because she owes them. Did they just sit around and hatch crimes?
I believe they did. They
did. I mean, that sounds very sociopathic on all of their parts to me. Mm-hmm. Did he take care of and stay in contact with your sister while she was in the Ukraine?
No, he abandoned her.
No contact?
No contact.
While they steal her identity?
Yeah, they took her U.S. passport, too, to get back to the United States, so she had no way to get back.
Who took it?
My dad.
Martin took it.
He said that she needed to give it to him because she'd probably lose it.
So he gets her into Ukraine and then gets her passport and then cuts off contact with her and steals her identity. When they steal this identity, they go file papers for different things. One of the misrepresentations they made was that they were married.
Yes.
How did it feel that they used their wedding date as the date of your mother's funeral?
I mean, it's horrifying to uncover, but not surprised knowing how evil and calculated these people were.
Chad Grenander, the prosecutor in Martin McNeil's murder trial, is here in our audience today. He has seen a letter that Martin wrote to Gypsy's parents a month after his wife's death. And I'm really curious. Chad, thank you first off for being here, and thanks for being so dogged in this prosecution.
Happy to be here.
Tell me about this letter.
It's interesting because in the letter, it's obvious that he has met Gypsy's parents earlier, probably a week or so earlier. So this is less than a month after Michelle's death. But in the letter, he expresses to Gypsy's mom that he will be eternally grateful for Gypsy becoming a part of his life. So that was huge, that he's expressing that kind of love for a woman within a month after Michelle's death.
Right.
And yeah, the relationship escalates. By around July 4th, he's on bended knee asking Gypsy to marry him. So things went really, really quickly. Yeah. There were comments to her mom about, I never really loved Michelle. I loved her more like a sister, not like I loved Gypsy.
Were you able to talk to the jury after the verdict came in?
We were.
What really drove the decision for them?
The escalation of his relationship with Gypsy within a month before Michelle's death, her coming into the home right after her death, the spike in the drugs on the first night home when Martin has access to Michelle after the surgery, and then there's a tapering down for several days. The very next opportunity he has access to her, when Alexis leaves, there's the spike in the drugs. She's dead in the bathtub. That, in addition to the application where you talked about how they used their marriage date as Michelle's funeral, those were big facts. In my closing argument, I referred to the almost perfect murder. It was only almost perfect because he left a number of clues behind.
Yeah.
A number of them.
Let's take a break. I have one important question for Alexis when we come back. I know it's all been reopened and raw from the trial and all. It would bother me greatly if you harbored feelings of guilt about this or played the what-if game with yourself. How are you doing with all that?
You know, I've gone through so many emotions, and I'm just relieved at this point that justice came from my mother. And I'm just so happy that I have my sisters to focus on. I was able to raise them, and they're just wonderful, beautiful girls. And we're just very relieved that he can't hurt anyone else.
Will you ever speak to your father again?
No, I won't. I mean, I'll have to see him in court. Sentencing is coming up, and I know throughout the years there was going to be probation hearings, and so I'll be seeing him and dealing with him for a long time.
Is it your thought and feeling now that he's where he belongs and he needs to stay there?
He's exactly where he belongs.
Do you hope that he never gets out?
I do.
You do?
I don't want him to hurt anyone else.
I have to finish this conversation by giving you an opportunity to tell us about your mother.
Oh, she was just the most beautiful woman on the inside and out, someone that loved everyone and loved her family.
I know it's difficult, but I really hope that you focus on the process of her life and all of the joy and memories that you had, and not just on the day of her tragic death. That was one moment in the movie of her life, but all of the rest of it was so joyful and so happy and so giving that that's a life to be celebrated and not remembered because of that painful moment that she became a victim. And I hope you choose to do that. I would like to thank Alexis and Linda for being here to share their thoughts and feelings. I would also like to thank Prosecutor Chad Grunander for his expertise on this matter. For more information, you can go to drphill.com. Thanks for being here. So long. All right, Ted, come get you all in just 1 second. Thank you so much. I just wanted to finish talking about your mom. Chad, thank you so much. Thanks, Jackson.
Today on Dr. Phill, she's threatening her ex.
He needs to pay up.
She's broke.
Did Nelson hide $1 million from Leslie?
No.
That box was always right there. He never let me touch it.
And she's bitter.
He threw me up against the wall, threw me on the floor, swung me in the living room.
That looks like Circus Olay.
I do not remember it happening like that.
I think she disagrees with you. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Thank you very much. All right, take a look at these threatening emails. You will pay the price for all of your behavior. I am coming after you. 50,000 more. You are in trouble. You are going down, and Dr. Phill is coming. Is my guest today in danger? Why does he owe 50,000 more to someone? Who is sending these emails? Well, the answer might surprise you. Meet Leslie. She was once a suburban housewife and devoted mother of 2. And now? Well, now she's divorced and on a mission to get money she claims her ex-husband owes her. She says he has hidden his assets with the intent to leave her homeless.
I'm angry about being treated the way I was treated. I'm angry that my ex-husband, Nelson, doesn't even communicate with me. I'm angry about getting screwed. I know Nelson cheated me out of money. He needs to pay up.
From the time that I filed for a divorce until the divorce ultimately was granted in 2011, I supported Leslie 100% financially.
My mother was sick. I wasn't working, and I could not afford to move out. I was held hostage. He said, I'm not going to give you a damn dime. The credit cards were cut just like that. No cash flow, nothing. I had to beg for $20. And he said, if you want $20, you go out there in that garage and you grab that mopping bucket and you come back in here and earn that $20 and you clean up this mess of kitty litter.
Leslie was gambling. She was using the credit card to get money out of the ATM at the casino. Leslie would come home late at night. I presumed that she had been losing at the casino. She would just throw open the door, screaming at me, demanding money. It was very frightening. Leslie's behavior felt like a wild animal was loose in the house.
Nelson's a sociopath. He would just act calm as a clam, and make me look crazy. He put me through hell. He owes me money.
Okay, but just how much does Leslie feel like she's owed?
After the divorce, it was like, boom. Nelson walked away with my home and the pool that I built, my children.
My ex-wife And my son Sam believed that I owe my ex-wife money. My daughter Emily and I believe that the divorce was fair.
Nelson walked away with over $1 million. We had plenty of money. He had a personal trainer for $400 a month. He had a membership to a fancy health club. He had a membership to a gun club. He bought 3 or 4 great guns. He just splurged. Nelson told my lawyer that he would take care of me. He would make sure that I got my hair done, that I had clothes, and then he turned around and basically told me, I'm not giving you a dime, and he didn't. Look at these holes. I never looked like this before. I mean, this is so upsetting to me. We just look like rag people. I feel like this is Nelson's fault because he promised that he would continue to buy me clothes.
Leslie felt entitled to be supported by me for the rest of her life. Leslie refused to look for work and has been living solely off the alimony.
In the divorce settlement, I got around $300,000. I have about $100,000 left. I'm afraid of ending up under a bridge like an old lady.
Okay, so you feel like you are totally getting jerked around by him?
Oh, absolutely.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Gut feeling, had it all along.
And this was premeditated by him?
I believe so. I believe he started I believe he started hiding money before he even decided to file for the divorce.
So, is that true?
That is not true, Dr. Phill. That's not true at all.
Why did you get a divorce? Why did this fall apart?
Well, ultimately, it came down to where I learned that Leslie had been going to the casino with some friends, and I was very concerned about the possibility of what could happen. I told her that if I find out that household assets were being used for her gambling, that I would file for a divorce.
Were you gambling?
This is exactly what happened. I came home one night late.
Were you gambling?
Yes, I was gambling. It was the first time I had ever gambled. I did not walk into a casino until I was 50 and a half, maybe 51 years old.
But you were gambling?
Yeah, it's my first time. And the next day, boom, that divorce paper was on the table. Okay. Just like that.
Is that true?
That is true.
That is fairly accurate, yes. Once I made my threat, if you will, and then I followed through.
Okay, so she went to a casino with some friends one time.
That's right.
And you filed for divorce the next morning?
I had experience that any time I learned something was going on, I could usually multiply it by 2.5 to 3 times.
If she said she'd been there once, she could have actually been there 3 times.
Whatever, but I knew trouble was coming.
And how long had y'all been married?
It was around 18 years, I think, when I filed.
18 years. So you thought if she's been over there 3 times, that, by God, that's enough.
Well, the reason... It was certainly more that triggered this than just the divorce, than the gambling itself.
Well, what led up to this? Because, I mean, come on, that seems a little radical.
Let's just say that the rest of the elements of the marriage were not working very well at all.
Well, give me the rest of the story.
There was constant fighting. There was disagreements. There was no satisfaction in the marriage. There was...
You talking about sex?
There was sex, yes.
Okay, well, we're adults. You can say it.
Sure. But it was the constant feeling that I was always chasing after something that would satisfy Leslie. And no matter what I did, the mark or the bar would change. And I just could never, ever do anything that would make Leslie happy.
We still talking about sex, or have we moved on to something else?
It was the broad spectrum of the marriage.
I'm just asking.
Well, you did, yes.
Yeah. How you doing over here?
I'm just letting him roll. And, you know, here's the funny thing is that he and I, before, I don't know, it'd been like 10 years previous, we went and played bingo, and he won $300 himself.
We're not here over a $300 bingo game, are we?
No. Heck no.
What the hell's going on?
I know. I'd like to know.
Because I made some notes here, and you said he is a lying, conniving psychopath, physically abusive, a rapist, that he threatens you with money, wanted you living under a bridge, that he's addicted to porn, that he parades around with his privates in his hands in front of the children. And then you're talking to me about a bingo game? I mean, are we...
Yeah, no, and I believe...
Did I bring over the wrong cards?
Okay. No, you didn't bring over the wrong cards. I said sociopath, which is somebody who...
I know what it means.
Okay, yeah, I know.
I need a break. If Nelson had nothing to hide, why did he keep his financial documents in a lockbox? And he doesn't disagree with that. He says there is a perfectly rational explanation. He says when he'd leave the house, he would lock these things up in a lockbox and he would take them with him. And he says for damn good reason. We'll see if there is one when we come back.
2003, Nelson raped me. He asked me if he could have sex. I said, I guess so. Once he started, there was a lot of pain. I kept asking him to stop, but he wouldn't. Finally, I screamed and pushed on his chest so hard that he stopped. Nelson was very, very angry, saying, poor little Leslie, you're such a victim. You're such a little victim. I was shocked.
Well, Leslie claims her ex-husband Nelson has not only taken advantage of her financially, but sexually too. In fact, she claims her marriage was filled with abuse. Now, Nelson agrees there was abuse in the marriage, but he remembers the incidences very differently.
Nelson was very abusive to me. The first time he was abusive to me, he threw me up against the wall like this, his hands on my neck like this, and then he threw me on the floor, and he put his whole weight on top of me, and he was going like this to me.
I never choked Leslie. Leslie would go into fits of rage. I would defend myself by holding up my hands to block her.
And he would swing me around.
We would get into a conflict where there was pushing, and it was both of us. Leslie would make up stories to make me look like the aggressor.
I called the police on him 5 times.
I remember I needed her signature on the tax form to complete it. I asked her if she would sign, and she declined. We argued back and forth. She grabbed a box that contains all my financial papers and ran into the bedroom.
He grabbed me and he said, get over here, you're gonna sign these taxes. And he put my head down like this, because the papers were all laid out. Sign them, sign those taxes, he said.
The conflict that ensued involved pushing, shoving, grabbing. The situation was out of hand, and I called the police. Leslie claimed she was hit.
And I had him arrested for assault and battery.
Leslie plays a victim very well.
I was just worn out.
Did you sign?
Yeah, oh yeah, I wasn't not going to sign.
She wanted to get paid to sign the forms.
Is that how that went?
Yes. How it went.
You grabbed her head and threw it on
that
the
is, that is.
Oh.
That looks like Circus Olay.
Oh my God. You threw me in the living room.
I do not remember it happening like that.
You don't remember that?
And if it happened like that, I would have remembered it, but I do not remember it happening like that.
Why don't you remember anything? You didn't do anything.
Did he grab you like that?
No. At first, he grabbed me and threw me around in the living room, and then he grabbed me and then brought me over to the table, and he asked me to sign him. We had a computer. I picked it up. I wasn't going to do anything with it, and that angered him because he thought I was just going to like bash the thing on the floor, and he brought me over, you know, and he said, "Sign those papers. You're going to sign those papers."
You picked up the computer.
I picked up the computer board, and he thought I was going to break it. And he grabbed me.
What were you going to do with it?
I just picked it up because to see what he was going to do.
You just thought you're just going to test him.
Well, I was tired. I was really tired, you know? When he filed for divorce, he wanted to do it under that house. I said, this is not a good idea. Staying under the same roof while we're walking through this divorce.
How long were you under the same roof?
About 2.5 years.
Oh, my God. So y'all living under the same roof for 2.5 years?
It was a nightmare, Dr. Phill.
You know, he took that box to work every day. I don't know what the hell was in the box. One time I grabbed the box, and I jumped in the car. He came in after me, bammed me, you know, grabbed that box from me. One time he jumped in the car, took my purse, and I had to call his lawyer and say, Mister, what do I do here? Nelson's locked himself in the car with my purse.
You grabbed the box and ran with the box.
That box was always right there. He never let me touch it. I wondered, and I kept saying, what do I do? Help me? How do I get this? But there are important documents in the box. You know?
But you got your hands on that box once, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. And boy, he came after me, too, man. I mean, I'm telling you.
What was in the box?
I had my checkbook, credit cards, extra credit cards. I had the things I used to pay my bills. That's kind of out of what I ran my household budget with. And I had to keep it with me. I had to keep it locked in my truck. I had to take it to work. If she got access to it, we found through my bank, she tried to pay for one of her credit card bills through my checking account.
What?
By getting the number off of the check. So the bank required me to open up a new account, close the old one, and it made it very clear.
The day he filed, he shut those cards. He took it all, just like that. Cut them, took them from me, out of my purse, gone.
But we made an agreement where I would pay her every week a certain amount of money, and I gave her a check. And so she would have the checking account number that way. And then she used that to try to make a credit card payment.
I think she disagrees with you.
Yes. Let's just say we have two different versions of reality here.
Oh, yeah, we certainly do. Remember, I'm the victim. I'm the victim, and the victim always remembers.
Did Nelson hide $1 million from Leslie? We're going to talk about that when we come back. Now, you say that there was a divorce, there was a settlement, but that it was a fraud.
Yes, that is correct.
That, in fact, that $1 million was hidden from you.
I think he had bank accounts that he had money in. I mean, I don't understand at the end how he has $1 million, near $8,000, and I have a year and a half of 18 years of marriage. That's what I got. He got the house. Oh my God. He says on there he gave me like $70,000 while this took place like for 4.5 years. Yeah, he made a gentleman's promise with my lawyers that I will take care, see that her hair is done. I will buy her clothes and women's products. There won't be any difference from her living at the house. And he moved me into a one-bedroom apartment.
We were provided the document. It indicated that Leslie was to receive 50% of Nelson's plan as of 2/18/10, adjusted for earnings. And in Nelson, 2010, $488,040, and Nelson 2012 was $1,007,000. Leslie 2010 to 12, $307,822. And what you're saying is it sure jumped up.
It sure did.
The deal was made in 2010.
I didn't.
And whatever it is after that, you have no claim to, right? I mean, the clock stops when you make the deal.
Yeah, but I think he was hiding money.
But you and your lawyer, you had representation.
Yes. I was just tired.
Your lawyer wasn't tired, right?
He was a friend.
Did you have poor representation?
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to say his name, because I'm not going to disperse his name.
Yeah.
But
I guess I had poor representation all through the time. I had several different lawyers.
you've been divorced for 4 years.
That's right.
Okay. In that 4 years, have you had a job?
I haven't worked since 2007, 2006.
Okay. So you haven't worked in 9 years.
Yep.
You think maybe you should...
I know you think that's funny.
No, I'm just saying, do you
you
think maybe you should get a job? Because, I mean, I could help you with that.
I wish you could. He was very verbally abusive through our whole marriage. I wanted to go back to college. I had a year left. I made straight A's, and he told me, if you want to go back to college, you go get your own student loans and hump it like I did. That's what he told me. And I thought that it would be good for the kids to see me go to college. He was not backing or supporting of me ever.
It's a good reason to get a divorce.
Well, I had enough of this, okay? I got hit.
Listen, I agree.
This started a long time ago. You're a bag lady. You're going to end up under a bridge. You don't help. You're a leech. You're telling my kids when I'm helping them with their homework, you're no smarter than a dog, Max. You can only take so much of this.
Right, and so you get away from it, and you work on healing those wounds, and then at some point you've got to decide either you lay down and you spend the rest of your life as a victim, or you find your strength and you get up and claim who you are, because you're smart. Because you're smart.
I know that. I know I'm a smart woman. I know this about myself. I do, Dr. Phill.
Well, theirs was definitely a house divided. Leslie and Nelson's daughter on the one side and their son on the other. We're going to meet them and see what they have to say when we come back.
Nelson doesn't support my son, Sam. Emily is Daddy's little girl. Emily is taken care of. Emily doesn't want to rock the boat because Emily feels very safe under that roof. With that money, there's a huge double standard. And Sam's in a lot of pain about it. Because it happened to me, I know.
Leslie maintains that she would do anything for her children. However, she accuses her ex-husband of favoring their daughter. She says that she and her son Sam both know what it feels like to be abandoned by Nelson.
Right now, I have no relationship with my father. He's completely unaware of the pain he's caused. There is a double standard whenever it comes to my father with my sister and I. My dad treats my sister Emily differently because she's a girl. He thinks that I ought to man up and work like he did. My dad does not understand my wanting to be a musician.
Emily's in college. Sam dropped out of college, and he's unemployed.
My dad supports my sister financially, and he houses her. Lots more money given to her, way more clothes. He makes me feel a bit like a beggar. The way he treats Emily and I differently has caused a separation between us because it feels so unfair that I'm not getting the same kind of treatment. I feel like my dad has broken his family in pieces.
Well, Sam's sister disagrees. She says her mom only has herself to blame for this whole situation.
Feels like my mother only pays attention to me whenever she's trying to get me to turn against my father. My mother texts me, "You tell your dad that there's a storm coming for him." Sometimes I wonder if my mother is emotionally or mentally stunted.
I do think Nelson has brainwashed Emily against me.
My mother talks about deserving more money from the divorce almost every time she sees me. I just can't be around her if she's gonna continue bringing up the divorce.
I've seen Emily about 3 or 4 times this last year perform. I know she wants me there, but she's just so busy all the time. I was a great wife, and I was a wonderful mother.
My brother and I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning with my mother marching up the stairs, trying to kick or punch my father's bedroom door in, screaming that she needed more money and that he was nothing but a cheapskate. One day, I looked out the window and my mother had an extension cord in her hand and she was going to try and hit him with it, and I almost called the police. Whenever my mother moved out, I thought, hallelujah, the chaos and turmoil is over.
Okay, now I hate any time I see a family fragment and come apart. You feel that your mother was then and is now being victimized by your father, as are you?
That's correct. That's the way I feel. I mean,
what is it that he should be doing that he's not doing? Being as specific as you can be. What is it?
Being as specific as I can, emotionally being there for me. I want you to talk to me. I want you to listen to me.
You want me to listen to you, Sam?
Yeah, I want you to listen, and you haven't been listening. I've been so afraid to talk to you. I've been so afraid to say a thing because I've got a dream. I've got a dream, and I changed my dream from being a physicist to being a musician.
When he changed from pursuing astrophysics to pursuing music, did you feel like he went off the rails and that was something you couldn't support? I mean, just be honest.
No, I understand that Sam feels a passion for his music. I said, hey, I support you. I think this is the time to do it. Do you remember me telling you that?
I haven't heard enough of that.
Sam, I feel like you're really upset that Mom had to move out and that you feel like you didn't really have that bond, but I don't know what else should have been done. I feel like that was what was best for everybody at the time.
A situation where my mother's not in a one-bedroom apartment, that I can't go visit her, and that is financially...
You asked. We asked him.
The financially is you're not supporting your wife who raised your children.
They are divorced.
Right, right.
And they did make a divorce settlement.
And that's a lie. I mean, on the divorce settlement...
You did get a divorce.
Yes, but
and you did make a settlement.
There are lies on that, though, and I didn't catch them. My mother had cancer. You see, I only had 2 choices once he threw me out of that house. You either call your mother and father, who are 85 and 86, or you call your children. He hid money.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss, by the way. Your mother died. Your best friend passed away. You had to put your dad in a home.
Yeah, back of the house.
But this was years ago.
I just want my fairness.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, I have a concern I want to address with Leslie when we come back.
Some nights I drink 3 beers, sometimes 4 or 5. I drink shots of vodka. I take anxiety medicines, and I take sleeping pills. I do it every night.
I was told that my mother could not even breastfeed me as a baby because she was addicted to pain pills. I remember when I was very young that she asked me to flush some pills down the toilet for her.
Leslie was doctor shopping, and she was able to get multiple prescriptions from doctors. Leslie had to go to treatment.
I've been to treatment 4 times. There's 5. Twice I went to get away from Nelson. It was like a vacation.
Leslie says over the years she's been to rehab for alcohol and pills twice, and claims she just didn't get away from Nelson. She says she was clean and sober for most of their marriage until the day Nelson threw her out of the house. She says she started drinking again and has a new drinking buddy.
When I was 16, my dad kicked my mom out of the house.
When I moved into the apartment, I really started drinking. I drink shots of vodka, drink beers. Beers are very, very strong, probably the heaviest you can. Right now, Sam and I are drinking together.
We're living in a 3-bedroom apartment.
Some nights I drink 3 beers. Sometimes Sam and I drink 4 or 5 if we're doing a whole nighter because, you know, he gets upset. I want to stay with him. For a while, we did some pot, but Sam and I both have trouble with sleep pills. Sam needs my sleeping pills to help him go to sleep. I take anxiety medicines and I take sleeping pills and I mix them on top of my drinking. I do it every night. In fact, it's time to have one now.
I'm going to say some things to you that you need to hear, whether you want to hear them or not. Because, see, I'm what's called expendable. It really doesn't matter whether you guys like me or whether you don't, because I don't have to go home with you. So that means I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do.
I love you.
And I think I've been very nice to you, right? Because I told you I like you. I think you're a smart woman. I think
I've been following you for years.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Way back on Oprah.
Okay. So you were digging me back in the Oprah days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just for the purpose of argument.
Okay.
Let's decide that he's a no-good rat bastard, okay?
You betcha.
Let's just, and I'm not.
Let's play this. Let's go
okay.
here.
Not saying that's true. Love what you're doing with your hair. But let's just, for argument's sake, we can get into it later, whether it's true or not, but just for argument's sake, let's decide that what you're saying is absolutely true, that he's a no-good rat bastard, okay? So I won't even debate that. If that's true, you're divorced from him. He's in your rearview mirror. Before I allow you to steal my son's dreams as you smashed mine into the earth, you should be a writer. I think the power of language is amazingly strong. The power of language is amazingly strong. When we use words and we say them to ourselves, they're amazingly strong. But we use these words sometimes to describe what's happening in our lives. And you do that a lot. You do that a lot. I made a list of the power of language, and you said, we look just like rag people. Okay, you had a hole in your sleeve. That is, like rag people.
Oh, my God.
You say, I think Dr. Phill is going to shotgun right into him. I knew it in my gut. I know in my heart of hearts. I know in an instinctual way, right down through my whole soul and body, that he hid money. No, you don't. You just suspect it. You say, I'm dying every day. You're not dying every day. You're not dying every day. You say, we filed for divorce. I was a hostage. No, hostage are people that SWAT teams come after. You say, I was like a caged bird. I had no voice. Oh, we know you have a voice. You say, I was running, and Nelson is meticulous it's like gunfire, and then you would make gun sounds. Fire again, gun sounds. It's like he was firing into me. Nelson's all about image. Nelson writes fiction, lives fiction. He is fiction. I mean, you would go on to this. You do it. He beat me down. Then you'd say, I was locked. I locked myself in the house. Then you would write text to Emily, and you would say, he's going to screw her and toss her in a field. Death to her. Wow. In talking about what he's going to do to you with regard to money. And then you say, he just kept reloading and firing more bullets into me. Before I allow you to steal my son's dreams as you smashed mine into the earth. I mean, you should be a writer.
I am.
Seriously, I know.
I am. I'm writing a book.
No, I know.
You're damn right.
I do my homework. You originally came out here and you were to pursue acting school and things of that. You have. That's why I said you have a great personality.
This is all about then. This is all about then. This is not about now.
This is what you said day before yesterday.
I also said I was tired of this. I am tired of this.
Okay. This is the way you talk to yourself.
And I do not walk around talking to myself like that all the time. Okay?
Good. Then
I do not.
Okay.
But I understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And you're 110% right.
If you don't talk to yourself that way, then that's one thing done.
No, you're 100% right. This is self-defeating behavior. I understand that. You are 110.
You know she does.
I think he talks that way to himself, too.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly. Clearly.
We both do.
Children learn what they live. You've got to get yourself clean. You got to get yourself sober. You got to stop being a victim. You got to start being a victor. You got to get back in the game.
You're damn right.
You're dealing with some serious issues here, and I'm willing to help you with these if you want the help. I'm willing to help you with these. Now, I can't tell you that I can change your past. Not even God can change what has happened.
He's gotten away with it. He screwed me.
Okay, then if he did,
that.
Then the best revenge is living well. I am willing to send you to a dual diagnosis treatment center to get you the help you need, the serious help that you need. I will make that happen for you at our expense, my gift to you. Are you willing to take that help?
Yes.
I will send you to South Padre Island, to Hannah's house. I will send you down there, and they will help you learn how to star in your own life. That's what you need to do, is star in your own life.
Yes.
And if he needs that help, I will do the same thing for him. If he needs that help, I will do the same thing for you.
I need clarity. I've got a dream.
I understand. Look, I have a son that's a musician, and I support his passion. This is my son, Jordan.
Oh my God, he's a rocker.
He's a musician, and I'm so proud of him, I can't even tell you. If you get any of the satisfaction that he does, I'll be in your balcony.
I bet you back.
These Origins people are fabulous. I will call them. I will make it happen. Are you willing to do this?
Absolutely.
All right, done. If you need that help, I'll make it happen for you. All right, done. I want to thank all of my guests today, and a special thanks to Origins. If you or someone else is going through a volatile divorce, log on to drphil.com. You can tell me about it. We will see you next time. Oh, God, thank you. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good to see you again, man. Nice to see you.